Briefcase Crimes contains graphic descriptions of violent events, loud dog noises, and very bad jokes, and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, listeners, to Briefcase Crimes.
I'm Hannah, and I have a head full of horrific facts about terrifying events.
I'm Liz, and I am full of morbid curiosity.
Elizabeth.
Hannah.
Today's a very special day.
Super, super special.
We are at a different location. We are
Together
in the same room. Instead of looking at each other on FaceTime, we are together with a microphone and a cup.
Literally.
We are joined by our very best friends, Brittany and Susan, whose house we are in.
And they are honored to be our first guests.
Yes, we have guests on our show. Do you two want to introduce yourselves and let everyone know what your experience is with true crime? Are you very knowledgeable? It's like all you do. You eat, sleep, and breathe it, like some weirdos that host this show. Would you say you're more of like a casual viewer? You watch some Forensic Files or like a 2020 once? Or are you like, I'm completely ignorant but interested? Or is this like not your jam at all and we just forced you to be here?
This is totally my jam by force.
By force.
I didn't pay you to say that. They're not being paid.
At all. Neither are we, so it's fine.
Okay, who wants to go first? Who wants to
start.
introduce?
Hey everyone, I'm Brittany. I'm relatively new to true crime. I watch some videos on streaming services that, we're starting off. I'm interested and I'm excited to be here.
Okay, that was so sweet.
I'm just excited to be here. Let's check in with Brittany halfway through the episode and see how excited she still is.
But I'm always excited.
We'll see. Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan. This honestly feels like when I was a kid growing up and we only had like one or two TVs and my mom and my sister only had murder shows on and I was like, guess I'm watching really awful things at the tender age of 5.
You're right at home.
And now at the tender age of 27, I'm listening to really awful things.
Well, we're in a beautiful place for it, though.
Yes, we are.
Brittany and Susan's house, since obviously our viewers can't see, is basically a dollhouse.
It's adorable.
It is all pinks and whites and gold, and it just feels like I'm not supposed to be touching anything. But
So you put your mic in a cup in the middle of our dining room table.
Exactly. We're going to get started today, and today we are going to be talking about Thomas Henry McMonigle.
That's a heck of a last name.
It is. I went to school with a kid whose last name was McMonigle, and it was around the time that Harry Potter started being popular, and so everybody called Professor McGonagall Professor McMonigle because McMonigle is a more common name where I am from than McGonagall. So McMonigle doesn't look that weird to me. It does remind me of an Irish man with a monocle.
Yeah.
McMonigle.
Like it would be one of the mascots with Ronald McDonald.
Yeah.
I was thinking like that Irish-Scottish ghost Hannah's on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
With an iPhone.
Did you see that man?
This may or may not say in, but we definitely had a ghost sighting today. I saw a man walking down the side of the road in full old-timey soldier regalia carrying a musket, and then Susan burst my bubble and told me he also had an iPhone.
He was most definitely looking at Google Maps.
But regardless, there was no reenactment happening anywhere near us, so
He's enthusiastic about history.
Beats me.
clearly.
Where were his bagpipes, though?
Liz thought he had, when we surveyed the group, Brittany was looking at her phone so didn't see him.
Nope.
I saw a man in old-timey soldier regalia with a musket. Elizabeth thought he had on fishing waders and a leaf blower, and Susan agreed with the style of hat that I described, but thought he was wearing a kilt. So,
It was a ghost, for sure.
With an iPhone.
you may go to your first line. So there are not a ton of pictures for this case, but the pictures that we have here on our first slide, that girl is Thora Chamberlain. Thora Chamberlain was born on November 22nd in 1930, and she was from California. She attended Campbell High School in Campbell, which is about 8 miles from San Jose, which is why I have the picture there, because it also plays into the story a little bit. She was a regular girl. There's not a lot of information about her because it's kind of just the case. There's not a lot of like background for her. There's not a lot of background for McMonigle himself. She appears to only kind of make her mark on history as being a victim, which is very upsetting and unfortunate. But what we do know is she was the daughter of a building contractor who was apparently very, like, he's described as being very well-to-do. So financially doing okay, as contractors often do. Then, on November 2nd, Elizabeth's birthday.
Yes, it is.
On November 2nd, 1945, Thora and her friends had just gotten out of school. It was like 3 o'clock, and it was a Friday, and there was a football game that night. So they were just psyched. 1940s, not a lot to do. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to a football game.
Sounds right.
Thora was even that day wearing the school colors. So she had a red skirt and a blue sweater, and also wore 2 pairs of bobby socks. So I'm assuming she had like one and then one pulled slightly lower so you could see both colors, but one set was red and one set was blue on each foot. So she had her school colors from stem to stern.
Super cute.
Super cute. And that's one thing that I like really miss about high school, kind of, is having like a reason to dress up. Plus, my school colors were orange and black. So every Halloween, we would just stock up on stuff. Like, you would go to school with your orange and black striped knee-high socks that you bought in October at Spirit Halloween. Like, we all just picked up a bunch of Halloween stuff to use as school spirit things. Mm-hmm. Like, I miss Spirit Week. Can we just have an adult Spirit Week?
We can make one. How about when we go on vacation next?
That's Spirit Week.
We'll make it be Spirit Week. We'll theme it.
Today is Crazy Hat Day. So Thora's walking out of school with her girlfriends, and a man in a beat-up sedan called from a man. There was a man.
And a sedan.
Sedan man.
Sedan and a man with a sedan.
Oh, God. Okay.
Not a van. A sedan.
Not a van.
Dr. Seuss.
Not a... I would abduct you in a van. I would abduct you in a sedan. That was, well...
I would abduct you as a man.
I would abduct you in a car. I would take you very far. Oh, gosh. Okay. So...
There was a man in his sedan.
So, sedan man calls out to Thora. He's, like, parked near the school, which is always a bad sign. Random men parked beside high schools is just avoid them at all costs. So, at this point, Thora is 14. She is 20 days from her 15th birthday. That's, like, not super relevant, but also just, like, puts you in mind of where you were when you were 14.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So he calls to her from this sedan, and she approaches him, and he looked to be an ex-serviceman. So, just for reference, World War II had just ended in August. Mm-hmm. So, there are a lot of those, especially in California, because you have people coming back from the Pacific. He looked to be a Navy man, which again makes sense because the Pacific. He was dressed in slate gray Navy-issue trousers, a white t-shirt with an insignia that said Londonderry, Ireland, a Garrison hat, which I had to look up. It's the soft cover hat, so it's the style of, like, I think of it as like the Krispy Kreme hat, but not paper.
Right.
So a Garrison hat with a water repellent cover, and he also wore several medals, including a Purple Heart, which that outfit...
You just wear it out.
That outfit doesn't... So when I first read this, I found, later on in my research, I found the actual, like, trial documents so I could get into more specifics, which is a blessing because I don't normally have that much. But I could get into more trial documents, which is where I found exactly what he was wearing. When this was described to me, I thought he was in, like, his dress whites.
Oh.
That he had his medals on. Like, he's in a t-shirt with his medals on?
What?
That's just weird.
I don't know if...
That is just very odd.
It is, but Thora's 14, and she thinks nothing of it, I guess. And she's just like, oh, he must be...
Coming from the girl with 2 pairs of socks on.
That's true.
Maybe he's just dressed for Spirit Week.
Yeah.
Dress as who you want to be when you grow up. I want to be an ex-Navy man.
With a
With a
t-shirt
purple
on.
heart.
A man in a sedan.
A sedan man with a t-shirt on and my purple heart pinned to my t-shirt. That was the other thing I was going to say. I had to look up the bobby socks thing was the 2 pairs of bobby socks, and I didn't realize that she was wearing them
Like stacked.
like stacked. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just like
Okay, one was red and one was blue.
I
Yeah.
thought she had just mismatched it,
It's
but
like-
then later it said they found 2 pairs of socks, and I was like, how many feet did this girl have?
I just picture in like
Jeez.
the early 2000s when guys would wear 2 polo shirts
Yep.
and like pop the collars.
I was gonna say she had 4 legs because she was a centaur.
No.
Oh gosh. This is our first victim who was also a centaur. So
She's not gonna fit in that sedan.
he had a horse trailer out back. So the man told her that he needed somebody to watch his sister's children for about a half an hour.
Totally not sus.
No, not sus at all. Legit, too legit to quit. So the reason that we know this is because Thora called one of her girlfriends over and was like, the way it sounds like she was like, this ex-Navy man needs someone to watch his sister's kids for half an hour. And she was like, well, I don't know, Thora, but I don't know. Like, that information comes to us from one of Thora's girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely.
So she was an on-the-spot babysitter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you know how you patrol around high schools and you're just like, hey, come watch my sister's kids?
Yeah.
Totally
All the time.
normal.
What if this ended with, and then she watched his sister's kids and she lived happily ever after and everything was fine?
Yeah, what if
It-
that had actually been the story?
I
If
wish.
that's how it ended, we wouldn't be talking about it. Let's be real.
I wish this is how that ended, but it didn't end that way. Thora got into the car with him and then asked her friends to save her a seat at the game.
Aww.
I know. They drove off and she was never seen again. So.
Heavy.
Heavy. Everything is so heavy. One minute we're laughing about people being centaurs, and the next minute it's like, oh yeah, a 14-year-old was abducted. Yeesh.
Yeah.
So originally, the police thought that maybe a ransom was coming. Like that the person took her because of her father's financial status. So they were searching for her, but they were waiting for this ransom note, and none ever showed up.
Mm-hmm.
They searched, there's like all this list of things. They searched like the hillsides, they searched like remote cabins and abandoned cars and all of that, and they found like hide nor hair of her, whatever the expression is. Hide nor hair? They found nothing of her. So the police talked to the girls who had been with Thora, and they described the man that they saw. So the police showed them a photo of a well-known, quote, troublemaker after they had described him, and the girls identified him as the man that they saw in the sedan man. If you go to your next slide. They identified, right, like, I don't know if it's the lighting or just his face, but that is a sinister man.
It's the shape of his head for
Yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about dark alleys. If I saw this man in a well-lit, crowded street filled with people, I'd still walk the other way.
Yeah.
If you saw him in a beat-up sedan outside of a high school and you were 14, would you babysit his sister's children?
In a t-shirt with a purple heart pinned to it? No.
No.
Hard pass.
The man,
No thank you.
the man was injured for our country, Elizabeth.
I don't care.
He was injured for her freedoms.
I don't care.
Honestly, just looking at this guy, I'd be like, sir, do you need directions back to the prison from which you escaped?
Funny you should say that.
Oh God.
So, the girls identified Thomas Henry McMonigle, who was a bus driver with a criminal record, as the ex-serviceman from the car, the sedan man. McMonigle had, in fact, never been in the Navy. if you can believe.
Yeah, I can.
He had actually, 6 weeks earlier, stolen a footlocker from a real sailor and found the clothes and the medals that he had worn inside of it. So even his disguise was stolen. As you can tell by the way that he executed it, he was like, I guess, trousers and a t-shirt and medals and a rainproof Krispy Kreme hat.
Super legit.
Is what you wear.
Yeah, I feel like when kids do dress up and they're like, yeah, bright green leggings go with a red polka dot dress and combat boots.
Yeah.
But also, like, that sounds like something I would wear, so I don't know. He was originally from Illinois, and he had been sentenced there to 9 years in prison for attempted rape in 1934.
Ugh.
This is the part where, when I was on the couch earlier and I said I was an idiot, it was because 1 year after he was released, he was arrested for, quote, attacking, which I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's a sexual assault. I don't know if that's, like, a battery. It doesn't get into detail, but he attacked a high school student, but her parents didn't press charges. And earlier, I was trying to figure out what year that would have been, 9 years plus 1 year out, and it took me about 15 minutes to realize that was 10, and that it was just 1944. I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand how some guy that looks like that attacks, whether that is bodily or sexual in nature or whatever. He attacks your high school aged daughter, and you're just like,
Whatever.
That happens, it's fine.
live and let live.
Yeah. Why would you not press charges? I would.
Maybe they were afraid of him.
Could be.
Maybe threaten them.
I have no information. Like, I wish I had something that could explain.
Would you press charges against a man who put himself in harm's way for your country?
I don't know if he attacked her with the Purple Heart on his... He didn't have it at that point, I don't think.
He had stolen it.
He had a different disguise at
That's
that
true.
point. He was an ice cream man.
He was dressed as Mother Teresa.
No, he was dressed as the Krispy Kreme guy.
No, that was later.
Dang it.
Would you press charges against your local donut man?
Yes.
He was a milkman at the time of that one.
Oh, yeah. So that's an attempted rape in 1934, quote, attack of a high school student in 1944, and then in October of 1945, which is 1 month before Thora's disappearance, Dorothy Jones, an African-American woman, went for a ride on McMonigle's bus and never stepped off.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This just looks like a still from a horror movie.
It
It looks staged.
what it looks like to me is Eraserhead. If anyone is familiar
Yes.
with Eraserhead.
I'm
Yes.
not.
Let me do
You need to pull up pictures.
I'll do a quick Google while we're sitting here.
You are absolutely right.
There is a movie, it is called Eraserhead, and it is
An uncomfy movie.
what's his name? David Lynch, who did Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the famous scene from it.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. It's a ugh. It gives me the heebies.
It's uncomfy.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies, and so does this man. So, Dorothy Jones's family report her as a missing person when she doesn't return from her bus ride on McMonigle's bus. San Mateo police, so San Mateo County is where all this happened. There's a lot of different counties involved in this, but San Mateo is the main one. San Mateo police were planning to arrest McMonigle. So they've got a positive ID from all these girls. They know he's no good. They know he's bad news, so they're going to arrest him. But he skipped town before they could.
Of course.
Like an innocent person does, you know.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I always skip town.
Are you trying to tell us something?
No.
I also always skip town and leave my wife and newborn child behind.
No. Somebody married him?
Can you look at him and tell me that he's not a stand-up guy?
Yes.
Can you tell me that's not a man who's not here for his wife and children?
That's a man who is not here for his wife and children.
That's a man who really shouldn't ever be here for anyone. When the cops told her that he was missing, she probably said thank you.
Well, so what happened was
I
he told his wife, I'm taking the bus down to Los Angeles. I can't really find anywhere like what he said he was going to do there. I guess like see the Hollywood sign or something, but go to like In-N-Out or something. I don't know what he was doing. But he wasn't doing any of that. He was hitchhiking back to Cottage Hills, Illinois, where his father lived. As one does. I also love these old... We only cover vintage crime here, and there's so many stories that are like, and then he just hitchhiked across the country. And I'm like, whew, No thanks. No thank you.
Again, hard pass.
Yeah. Especially, can you imagine, you're driving down the road and you see this man with his thumb out and you say, ah, yes, I will give him a ride.
But was he wearing his Purple Heart?
He was not. And I'll tell you later how I know he was not.
All right.
So, police tracked his movements. He's, like, gone to Illinois, but police are trying to figure out where he went. So they tracked his movements to a town called Burlingame, where he worked at a construction site. So he was apparently either not a bus driver at the time, like he was a bus driver and then a construction worker, or he was doing both, perhaps. But he worked at a construction site in Burlingame, and then they quickly realized, oh crap, this guy is gone, and he has fled across state lines, which means they were able to get the FBI involved. So the FBI cannot be involved unless it is a multi-state crime, so the person has crossed state lines, or they are invited personally by the police department. Like, the FBI can't just be like, this is a bad crime, I'm going to go and be involved in this.
Right.
Unless the local cops say it's okay, or they have either gone across state lines or committed crime in multiple states.
Makes sense.
Because they're federal. So the FBI tracked him all the way across the Midwest, where he had been staying in different motels and using fake names. I don't know any of the fake names, but I'm sure they were a doozy. I'm sure they were great.
And this is why when you check into a hotel nowadays, you have to provide ID. I'm just saying.
We always like to, in my family, if anybody says anything that sounds like it could be a name, we claim it as an alias. So I don't want to blow up my family's spot here, but my dad and my cousin, they're both active fishermen. And there is a type of bait called walleye grub pack. And we're always like, hi, it's me, walleye grub pack. Like, it just sounds like a name.
It kind of does.
Yeah, I'll keep the other one to myself for right now. I'll tell you that later. The FBI tracked him all across the Midwest. He went into, like, Missouri, Illinois, and then he started going back to California. I guess he thought, like, I did my thing in Illinois. I lost him. I'm just gonna head back. So
They'll never look for me back at home.
yeah, I'm gonna go to the last place that they'll expect, my house. So he doesn't go to his house. They basically are like, oh, he's heading to San Francisco. So when he gets off the bus on December 6th, 1945, they arrest him on the spot. However, while on the bus, he had taken a ton of sleeping pills in an apparent suicide attempt. And when he got off the bus, they described him as semi-conscious. So it didn't work.
Obviously.
They took him to a doctor. I don't know if they, like, pumped his stomach or whatever they did, but they took him to a doctor. They got him patched up and ready to go, and when the doctor said he was in good mental and physical condition, he started going on excursions with the FBI all over San Mateo and the surrounding counties. And he said this was in an attempt to do, quote, everything humanly possible to help them solve this situation.
Excuse me?
This guy, everything that comes out of his mouth, like, you think he looks weird? Everything that comes out of his mouth makes zero sense. Like, none sense. So much no sense that it's like, I don't know. I don't know what he's playing at, but
2 women were missing, correct? Did they ever find the other woman?
did they ever find any women is the real question.
Oh.
Because they haven't found anybody yet.
Oh.
So.
Neither hide nor hair, remember?
Right, right.
Were they on the bus the whole time?
Oh,
I
gross.
freaking wish. I wish they were on the bus and unharmed. Here's another great point, Britt. They're looking all over the place for Thora Chamberlain. I have no idea if they were even looking for Dorothy Jones, which would make sense since she was a black woman in 1945.
That's gross.
And sad.
Yeah,
So sad.
her family reported her as missing, but, and this could be like a really gross mischaracterization. I could look into something and find out that they were like looking really hard, but nothing I read said that they were really doing a lot to find her.
That's really upsetting.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Like, it makes sense historically, but it's not right.
It's such a gross fact.
yeah.
It doesn't mean it's any less upsetting. This whole thing is very upsetting. So, he's arrested on the 6th. They give him time to get up and about. And so he's going on excursions, and on the 12th, so 6 days later, after one of these excursions, he finally made an official statement about the actual crime. He, submitted a statement legally.
This ought to be good.
And then in my notes I just have, it's weird. So this is an excerpt from it. I don't have the entire thing because it's just...
A lot?
Nonsense.
It basically reads like when I'm having a bad brain fog day and trying to speak about a thing I have not... if I had not taken any of my meds and was having terrible brain fog and hadn't slept and then was trying to explain neurosurgery to someone.
Jeez.
It sounds like he has no idea what they're even talking about. So he says, quote, "If I shot her, that is where it took place." He took them to he said about, he took them all over the place. And was like, I took her here, then I took her here, then I took her here. So he's saying, if I shot her, that is where it took place. Whatever happened to the girl happened to her at this point. There was but one shot fired. I do not recall. Replacing the bullet which was discharged from it on the occasion the gun was fired on highway number 1 at the time the situation happened to the girl. I am satisfied that the girl was dead at the time. I proceeded north. While I am not certain as to just what happened with the gun in the front seat of the car, I know it is my responsibility for what occurred at this time." Unquote.
What?
Wow.
Do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like when you're on your phone, you just hit the middle button.
Just continuously.
He's just autocorrecting his entire confession.
Just the whole thing is predictive speech.
He sounds like either that or it's like
a bad translation from a foreign language.
Repetitive Google Translate.
Yes.
Alexander Litvinenko. Or no, Lukashenko. Alexander Lukashenko. What it sounds like to me is they went to somewhere in the forest with a psychic, and the psychic was channeling him.
And was like,
If I
says,
shot her, this is where it took place, maybe.
I feel the energy of confusion of not knowing what happened with the gun in the front seat.
Even though I was there the whole time, and am admitting that I'm there.
That I'm the one who did this thing, but I don't know what happened.
Right.
I closed my eyes.
Well, remember all of this. It is salient. So, he then claimed that he went to Half Moon Bay in San Mateo County with her corpse in the car, and that he dropped her body over a 300-foot cliff known as the Devil's Slide. Next slide. And that would be the Devil's Slide.
Oh my god.
That is quite a slide.
It is 300 feet down. It is directly into the Pacific Ocean. So, drop something down that.
It's never coming back.
It's never coming back. Which he must have known, because when the FBI searched the area, they found no body. The body had likely washed out to sea. But what they did find were a pair of red and a pair of blue bobby socks.
Just on the ground?
They were
Stuck
caught.
to a
They were
rock.
caught in a crevice or a spot.
Oh,
They
jeez.
caught on a foothold. What they think is that he took her out of the car.
Yeah.
And rolled her.
He drug her by the armpits, and when he did that, her feet were on the ground, so her socks rolled up over her feet.
That
Oh,
would
so
make
they
sense.
slid off on the way down.
Yes.
I was gonna say that, or that he ditched her clothes.
So that's the thing, is in another version of his confession, because he did multiple versions of this confession, he claimed that he did, in that confession, he claimed that he stripped her nude, and that he dropped her on the side of the road. Doesn't mention the Devil's Slide, but they find the red and blue bobby socks, and that's where I was saying about everything I had read had said they found a pair. I thought at first it was a red and a blue, and then it said a pair of red and a pair of blue, and I was like, how many legs does this girl have? I was very confused, but I'm also, like I said, not a smart man.
Neither is he, it's fine.
True. They went back to the construction site in Burlingame, and they talked to his coworkers, and they said he had been off Monday through Friday, so the Friday being November 2nd, the day that she disappeared. He had been off that whole week. He returned back to work on November 3rd. And that when he returned on that Saturday, he had bragged about being out with a 15-year-old girl the night before.
Ew. Come on.
For context, this man is anywhere between 33 and 35.
Gross.
Yucky.
Very yucky.
And he's married and has a child. Leave children alone. Gross.
It's so gross.
It is. It's getting worse.
Cool.
They thought, okay, we're not finding a body at the Devil's Slide. Maybe we should excavate at this construction site that he was at the day after. And they didn't find a body, but they did find brown shoes, school books and papers, a zipper binder, and a cowbell, all belonging to Thora Chamberlain.
Ugh.
I see the confusion on your face. She was going to a football game.
Right.
So it was like a cheering section.
Yeah,
cowbell.
right.
It wasn't like, this is my cowbell for my centaur
No.
body so people know where I am in the field.
No.
Yeah, when I read that, I forgot that she was going to a football game, and I was like, why did she have a cowbell? And then I remembered.
Says the girl who tried a Saltlick once.
Everyone from the country has done that. That's not.
If you're from the country, tell us if you've tried that.
If you're from the country, you don't even have to tell me. I know you've licked a Saltlick. I know it, Jeremy. Everyone has licked a Saltlick if there is a Saltlick to lick. What does this have to do with her having a cowbell?
How many salt can a Saltlick lick?
Rude. So, McMonigle is like, the whole time, talking to police and telling them things about the crime, and things keep changing, but also, like, he's not denying that he did it. He's just confused on what exactly he did.
It just sounds like he's making stuff up.
He might have been drunk and forgot the series of events.
I'm going to
Could've
throw
been.
spaghetti at the wall until something sticks. I'm going to start saying things about a crime, and if I'm getting warm, blink at me twice. If I strangled,
If I showed up wearing a t-shirt and my purple heart on it with my Krispy Kreme hat, blink.
my waterproof Krispy Kreme hat.
Was I driving a sedan at the time or was it the bus? Who knows? Where do I really work? A construction site?
He rolls up in a bus like, my sister needs someone to babysit her kid.
Honk, honk.
He does that, like the air brake noise. Shh. And the door opens. The little arm comes out the front.
I thought you said air horn noise.
Target!
He holds an air horn out the window and he's like, who needs to babysit my kids? Yeah. The McMonigle bus is here. McMonigle. So he tells him at this point that there was a shot fired in his car and that he didn't remember how the gun went off or what happened, but she was shot through the head. So that is basically what he says. And then he says that he, quote, dug the bullet out of his car door.
Oh.
Yeah, unquote. And he ripped out all the, like, blood-soaked upholstery, all of that, because his car was corpsey.
Gross.
And then he took the bullet and he buried it in his backyard under a tree to grow a gun tree.
What?
That's all I can picture.
Wait, no, is that you inferring or is that actually what he said?
That's me. No. This man is not that far off his rocker.
I
but,
wouldn't
like,
be surprised.
my thought is, like,
Why would you bury the bullet?
well, you bury it because you don't want anyone to find it, but, like, I buried it under a tree in my backyard in the hopes that a bullet tree would one day grow. My grandma used to have a mighty bullet tree in the backyard that we used to play under.
I think she's been in the country for too long.
It's that Saltlick.
I've been tainted by the Saltlick. So, at this point, they don't have a body. And this case, I'm gonna spoil this a little bit. They never find a body
Aw.
for her. She is still listed as missing. Like, there are places that are still trying to find her. There are places that I cannot tell if these places are trying to find her body or if these places do not believe he ever killed her.
I don't know.
I cannot tell.
I believe that he killed her. I just
I think
don't
so.
think he really wanted to fess up to it.
Yeah, but I would assume they would just be looking for her body at
Yeah.
this point.
I mean, I think it's a little diluted to not believe that he killed her with the evidence that there is, even though there's not, like, a ton. Oh, that was the other thing. They also found, like, buried out somewhere, his quote, his Navy clothes and stuff were, like, buried. So he
you
wasn't...
mean his t-shirt and slacks?
And his Krispy Kreme hat.
Waterproof Krispy Kreme
Waterproof
hat.
Krispy Kreme hat. Like, when you said about was he wearing his Navy stuff, because he had buried that too.
Right. To grow a Navy uniform.
To
tree.
grow a Navy serviceman. To grow a
Yeah.
sailor.
You know.
That's how I did it.
Oh my
I
god.
planted an anchor in my backyard and Ryan grew. A mighty Ryan.
God.
That's why his limbs are so long.
It's because I watered it every day. Okay, so they didn't have a lot of evidence. The evidence that they had was pretty circumstantial. And for when you read about crime, you often see evidence labeled as circumstantial. And for the layman, that is like, what is that? What does that mean? What makes evidence circumstantial versus compelling or firsthand or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I was told once by a lawyer that circumstantial evidence is you walk outside and the ground is wet, so you say it must have rained. So, even though circumstantial evidence, people think that circumstantial evidence is like a case killer. It's not. It's not. You can take cases to court with circumstantial evidence and with only circumstantial evidence, but it usually helps to have something a little more concrete than like an open-ended, this could be anything kind of
Right.
piece of evidence. So really what they have is people who saw her get into his car. They have his weird confession. They have, I think they had his car with like the padding and stuff removed. They had the bullet.
Did they have a statement from his sister with the kids that supposedly needed babysat?
I am 0% sure. I'm actually 100% sure that he didn't have a sister.
That's what I'm saying, because that's pretty not circumstantial.
Yeah, but it's not a crime to tell someone you don't have a sister. Or to tell someone you have a sister when you don't.
It's just suspicious.
It's suspicious, but it ain't a crime.
No.
It's not a crime to tell someone that you need a babysitter when maybe you don't need a babysitter.
But is it a crime to have a waterproof Krispy Kreme hat?
No, the Navy has them. How else are you going to keep your paper Krispy Kreme hat dry on the 7 seas, Brittany? God. So even though they had no body, circumstantial evidence, they still take the case to trial. And McMonigle took the stand in his own defense.
Oh. That always ends well.
Wait, did he steal clothes off a lawyer?
No. He did not defend himself. He did not act as his own attorney. He
Okay.
is not Ted Bundy. But he did take the stand, which I have told Elizabeth in the past. A lot of times defense lawyers will caution against that because anytime your client is being questioned by opposing counsel, you are not under control of what is going to go on. And it's very easy for them to accidentally incriminate themselves or to just say something that is like completely unsympathetic. You're always trying as a defense lawyer to show the jury what a good person your client is. Or if they're not a good person, why they should overlook that. So you don't want your client to get on the stand and have the prosecution, whose job it is to make them look bad.
Right.
So you can do as much prep as you want for the cross-examination for this, but like, once they get up there, especially with such a loose freaking cannon as Mr. McMonigle, who knows what he's gonna say
Yeah, honestly.
when he gets up there.
Neither does he.
Exactly. So what happens is, he gets up there and he starts saying all these different stories about what happened. He says, it was a shooting, it was a stabbing, I strangled her, I accidentally shot her, I might have seen her die after she fell from my car, I actually wasn't involved in her death at all. Like, I don't imagine this was in like a 20-minute period, I imagine this was over the course of a couple days, but like, guy, pick a story and stick to that story.
If I were his lawyer, I would have quit.
Oh, absolutely.
I could look and see who his lawyer was because I have the court documents, but I bet it was a public defender.
I guarantee it wasn't Edgar Snyder.
It was not Edgar Snyder because Edgar Snyder would never have put up with this. He wasn't even practicing law yet, I don't think.
Probably not.
45, but he had all those different stories that made no sense together or separately. And so then when it was the prosecution's turn, they spun a version of events in which he abducted Thora with the intention to rape her. And then when she resisted, he murdered her, which likely.
Yeah.
Likely. So like other criminals that we've talked about and other criminals that you see in true crime, he clearly was someone who was escalating. So he had an attempted rape, and then he had an attack, and then he had a disappearance, and then he has a murder. But there was likely going to be some sort of sexual intent there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if he was bragging about being with a 15-year-old.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just so gross.
Can we get back to how that is so yucky?
The more disgusting thing is that we don't know if it was pre or post murder.
I would
Post.
guess post. Unless
We
he,
would
like,
assume.
had her hold up somewhere.
Or, like, tied her down in the back of his
I
car or
don't
something.
know that he actually, like, we don't know. Because, like I always say on this show, we only get one side of the story.
Allegedly, this
We
happened.
don't get Thora's side of the story, and McMonigle never says anything about sexual intentions.
And even if he did, at this point, how reliable is his account of
Right.
anything?
He basically
Yeah.
could be like, and then we went to the moon! And it's like,
Yeah.
that fits in with everything else you've said, you nut. So, we don't know what happened. And him saying, like, I was with a 15-year-old last night, like, I mean,
Yeah.
like, technically he was.
She was in its car.
Yeah, he was out. He was, quote, out with a 15-year-old.
I just need to, like, rewind and talk about the fact that this man, who is clearly not of sound mind, was married with a newborn.
And somehow holding 2 jobs.
Yeah, like, what?
But it was the 40s, and all the men were at war. Slim pickings.
With a face like that, I would never have picked him.
When the pickings are slim, you gotta go with a racer head. I've always said that. So we talk again.
You've broken Brittany.
Well, I hate to say it, but it's gonna keep getting worse.
Oh, God.
So, again, we talk a lot on this show about jury time. Like, the one was like 6 hours, and we said that's a lot of time, but not in jury time. It took the jury 38 minutes to sentence him guilty.
Wow.
They were like, buddy,
Crap.
you heckin' guilty. Like, ooh.
And the man can't lie his way out of a paper bag either.
No.
Well, then he gets sentenced by the judge. He is sentenced to death in the gas chamber.
Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
So remember, people always think about, like, the death penalty as lethal injection or, like,
Electric chair.
electric chair, but there were so many options. Like, you could be up to, like, a relatively recent amount of time, you could be executed in some states by firing squad.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not, like, yesterday, but, like, into the 20th century, like, the mid-20th century.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine being like, okay, you're gonna die, pick your poison. Like, what are you gonna do?
Like, spin the wheel.
Oh, good thing the judge gets to pick that for you.
I mean, some states no. Some states, there are times where it's like, okay, you're going to be sentenced to death. How would you like it to be done out of these options? In which case, I would say, I would like to be sentenced to death from old age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's an option.
I wish. If it were me, I wish, but not for this guy.
I don't think you'll need to worry about that.
So he goes on death row, and he confesses that his victim's body was located near Alameda. So they went to the location that he had described, and they excavated, and they find a body, not of Thora Chamberlain, but of Dorothy Jones.
Oh.
So Dorothy Jones was found. She
Wow.
was unfortunately dead. He had definitely murdered her, and he is suspected of probably murdering like 11 people.
Oh my God.
Perhaps that's
But
like
they couldn't get him on them.
that's the accepted number. But the thing is, this is also sad. So they find Dorothy Jones, and he like confessed to that, but he was never charged for the murder because he already had a death sentence.
Right.
Which, I mean, I kind of get it because it's taxpayer money that is like putting the trial. That's who pays prosecutors, by the
Yeah.
way. Your tax dollars pay your prosecutors, so pay attention when you're voting for like your district attorney and stuff, and your states, your like attorney general of your state and stuff. Pay attention because they're who pick the caliber of people who are going to be trying these cases. And also, just vote in general. Like, this is our we have a
It's a good idea.
we have a PSA every episode about a different thing. And
Yeah.
this week's is, please just vote. It's coming up on that season. Make sure you register to vote. Make sure you know where your polling place is. We'll put a link in the description for that to help you with that. But I can understand why they're not wasting taxpayer money when he already has a death sentence, but that feels like a
kind of a cop-out.
kind of, I thought, stealing that justice from the Jones
Like
family.
Yeah.
a slap to the face to that family.
Right.
when we don't even know that they were actually looking for her in the first place.
Did they know how she died?
I'm just glad they have a body to put to rest.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't find anything that said how she died. I'm sure I didn't even look for a book on this. There might be, but I don't know.
You didn't read it. So.
I didn't read it if there is. I so badly wish that my next sentence was, and then he was in the gas chamber and he died. The end. But it's not. It gets, if you can believe it, even weirder. So we're going to go to our next slide. This man is Dr. Robert Cornish. Dr. Cornish was a child prodigy. He graduated from UC Berkeley with honors at 18, and then he received his doctorate by the age of 22.
Wow.
So, like, in what time did you have to get your master's? Did you just jump straight from bachelor's to... Maybe he dual enrolled and got his bachelor's and his master's at the same time. I don't know. But he was a biologist, and his claim to fame was resuscitation experiments. What he would do is take deceased patients and he would put them on a teeter board, which is what you see down there on the right, the lower right, which is basically like a big seesaw. Like, he'd put them on a teeter-totter, and these are dead people. And that would, quote, get the blood flowing. So he would just, like, tip them back and forth with his...
To get blood pumping
with
again.
blood. And he would have epinephrine and anticoagulants, like, injected into their system while he was doing this. So the idea would be, you're being sloshed back and forth. Your blood is not being allowed to coagulate, even though you're dead. So your blood is getting liquidy, and your epinephrine is stimulating, like, your heart and your brain. And the hope with this was, it will bring them back to life. He's like a modern day...
Dr. Frankenstein.
Dr. Frankenstein.
That really makes sense.
Dr. Cornish, which, if you remember, Elizabeth, Cornish was the last name given by the Denver Spider-Man, Theodore Edward Coneys. When he was picked up, he said his name was Matthew Cornish.
Mm-hmm.
I remember everything.
Yeah, you do.
When I worked at Big Weather, we had a broadcaster whose last name was Cornish, so that sticks in my brain. So he tried these on victims of drowning, heart attacks, and electrocution, but none of them were successful. He had no patients that came back to life, if you can believe. I feel like that's not surprising, because if they had worked, I think we probably
would know his name.
We would probably be doing that kind of thing. So he was doing this in the 30s, like the early 30s. It wasn't working on humans, so what he did was he switched to animal experiments. So I know there are people out there who can really handle true crime and violence on humans, but really don't like animal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, you might want to skip forward about 30 seconds, 15 or 30. He switches his focus to animal testing, and he uses clinically euthanized dogs, so already dead dogs, and he names them all Lazarus, which is
Gross.
which is a play on the Bible.
Yeah.
And there are 5 in total. He allegedly revived 2 of them. Lazarus is 4 and 5. He allegedly revived from stone cold death. So here's the next question. Why am I telling you about Dr. Cornish, Frankenstein,
Yeah, I'm
and
curious.
his Lazarus dogs?
For a wonderful gas chamber victim human experiment, right?
We took a hard left into science fiction.
Yeah, we did.
So he brings back Lazarus's 4 and 5, allegedly.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
The dogs.
You weren't listening. 'cause
No,
you were,
no. I listened, but he brought them back?
That's
Allegedly.
what he says.
He says he brought the 2 dogs.
He said, I had 5 dead Lazaruses, and now I have 2 live ones.
I don't think so, but okay.
Even
He bought new dogs that look like the old
even
Right.
even Jesus couldn't do that. He only brought back 1 Lazarus.
Oh.
And it wasn't a dog.
Take that, Jesus. It was just a stinky human. In light of these strides that he's making, he turns his attention back to human testing. He's like, I got these doggies on lock. It's time to get back to the people. So he's looking for humans to test. And in 1948, McMonigle writes to Cornish and volunteers his body to science.
Gross.
So Cornish agrees, like, immediately. He's like, tight, tight, tight. I have a man. He's gonna be killed anyway. I can put him on a teeter board and pump him full of epinephrine and anticoagulants, and we can slosh him back to life.
And then kill him again.
Well,
Gross.
so he agreed, and he wrote the state governor, and he was like, please let me do this. What he actually said is, quote, McMonigle wishes that we should attempt to revive him after he has been pronounced dead. He feels that if this should prove possible, the successful method could then be used to save the lives of countless innocent persons who would otherwise die permanently from drowning, from electric or other shock, or from asphyxiation. So all of a sudden, he's this humanitarian.
He's just a stand-up guy.
What a
is.
saint.
So he's like, I would like to be used for this scientific purpose so that they can bring people back from accidental death, but if it cannot be done, I would like my eyes to be donated to, let me find her name. Hold on.
Wait, to a specific person?
I didn't write this.
No.
I did
Not
write
a doctor or a clinic or something?
No. I wrote this down. Or I didn't write this down, but I did read it.
Why?
So it's
This
not
is gross.
I would like them to be donated to a rando to keep in a jar. He wanted, if he failed to be resurrected, he wanted to give his eyes to Patsy Ruth Fergus, who was 15 and blind, and she was barred from school because she had a guide dog.
What?
Let's talk about the 40s were a nightmare. Sorry, blind girl, you can't come to school. You got a dog and no dogs allowed.
First of all, what did he think that they were going to be able to do?
So a lot of times, though,
Especially back then.
So this is a true fact. A lot of times when somebody dies and they're an organ donor, if their eyes are the correct size and they're compatible, you can transplant eyes.
Can you?
You can.
In the 40s?
I'm not sure about, I assume in the 40s.
If he
But-
even knew about it.
But I remember when my cousin John died at 17, the night he died, they called about, what are you willing to donate for him, for his
Right.
organs. And I remember one of the things being, or when I was told, I wasn't at this event, but when I was told about this later, they said about well, will you donate his heart? And they were like, yes. And will you donate this? Will you donate that? And they said, will you donate his eyes? And they were like, this is my child that's freshly dead. And they were like, they're still small enough to be used in children.
Mm-hmm.
Children who are blind could have his eyes. So it is a thing that they can do.
That's just wild to me.
Yeah. So Patsy Ruth Fergus, barred from school because she had a guide dog, and apparently her story touched the heart of
This man.
this terrible murderer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he has one.
Construction bus worker with a sedan.
Yeah, Navyman.
Sedan man.
Fraudulent Navyman.
Eraserhead.
Eraserhead. He says, if I cannot be revived from death, please donate my eyes to this blind girl who's not allowed into school because she's a dog. I can't get over that.
Question.
Okay.
They transplant his eyes into this girl, and then she becomes a murderer.
No!
Isn't that there's
There's a movie.
there's
about
a
something
movie
like
with
that.
Jessica Alba.
Yes, where she can see death.
Yes, I remember, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I remember
I did.
the cover
Yeah.
is an eye and there's a hand coming out of the lower, onto
Yes.
the lower lid.
It's called The Eyes.
Okay, if I cannot be revived from my execution, please donate my eyes to this girl. The state governor at the time wrote back to Cornish. I don't have his response, but basically they said, nah, fam, we're not even going to let you try because if you succeed, he would be freed under double jeopardy.
Right.
So, again, legal nomenclature for people who don't know. If somebody is convicted of a crime, or somebody's tried for a crime and convicted, I think it is convicted, they are not allowed to be tried again if they're acquitted after the fact. So the idea would be, if he is killed for a crime that he committed and he served his time and then he comes back to life, we can't put him back in jail for this thing that he was supposed to be put to death for. So we're not even going to attempt it just on the off chance that you
Make it happen.
Yeah, the Oakland Tribune described Cornish's machine as a junk man's dream made of a vacuum cleaner blower, radiator tubing, an iron wheel, and glass tubes. Sounds like when you're a kid and you put a bunch of junk together and you're
Yeah.
I built a robot, and your
Yeah.
parents are like, sure you did. February 20th, 1948, McMonigle was put to death for good. I read a thing about how he tipped his head back and took 3 deep breaths, and he was put to death. And so the fallback of his eyes being transplanted, they were not suitable. They would not work for Patsy Fergus. And she was only quoted as saying, "It would be wonderful to see again, but I'm not too disappointed. I don't like the idea of seeing through a dead person's eyes." Fair. I want to know more about Patsy Fergus, because
But also, is anybody shocked that a grown man's eyes weren't a fit for a teenage girl?
I also hate the fact that she was also 15.
Yeah.
That's
I wonder if he was
creepy.
infatuated with her.
I don't know. I
In a
think he
weird
was
way.
just trying to garner sympathy.
Probably.
This
Yeah.
poor girl who's not allowed in school because she's got a dog that helps her see. I can't get
I
over
know.
that. But he's like, this poor girl that, like, I assume this was, like, a story that people were either outraged about or whatever, but I assume he was trying to garner sympathy with people.
Yeah.
Especially the same with, like, I want to be one of these experiments because it will help people who have accidental drowning. Like, I don't think he believed that. I think he just
Wanted someone to bring him back.
Or wanted people to be like, aw, he is a good guy.
Right.
Yes. And so that is the end of Thomas Henry McMonigle.
Gross.
A yucky, yucky guy.
Just a very yucky guy.
Thoughts? Prayers? Concerns?
I have many.
I always have many after these.
Yeah.
This is like, we've never had a killer try to come back from the dead before.
Yeah, that's new.
It's new.
New and interesting and fun.
Yeah.
Shake things up.
Oh, he tried to shake things up all the time.
Shake back and forth on a teeter table.
Exactly. He tried to put him, you never just strap a dead body to a seesaw
And see what happens.
Pump it full of adrenaline and
Kick it back and forth.
Anticoagulants.
Whatever happened to his poor wife and kid?
I want to know the same thing. I kept thinking
his
that.
nameless wife and nameless child.
I don't blame her. For
It's
not
maybe
wanting
better
to
that
associate
way.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that she was like, woof.
Dodged a bullet. Glad my kid and I are
Peace
okay.
out.
Yeah.
Literally dodged a bullet.
What are we reading? What are we recommending? Who wants to start?
Anything not murder, but all I read is murder and horror.
Wow. Okay, guests first. It is your home. Are you actively reading anything? And if you are
I
not,
actually just picked something up to start. I have not read it yet, but it came as recommended. But I need to check the name of it.
that's okay.
So Brittany
I
can go
always
first.
I forget constantly. I'm constantly telling the Amazon personal assistant, who shall remain nameless for this recording. I'm constantly telling her to play my audiobook on Audible. If Audible would like to sponsor us, we're still open to that. But I always tell her to play my audiobook. But recently, I moved from... I'll talk about what I'm reading while Susan looks up hers. As I said last week, I finished Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and I'm now reading The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, and they're both Spinning Silver, Starless Sea. So I'm constantly being like, play Spinning Silver on Audible. And then when it starts, I'm like, Miriam, you're not in this book. So I get all confused, and then I realize I just picked the wrong thing. So I'm still reading The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. It's kind of a hefty book, but I'm listening to it on Audible and I'm reading it on Libby like I did with Spinning Silver, and I would at this point highly recommend it. But if you want a book that I have read and have read the whole way through, I would recommend another book by Erin Morgenstern called The Night Circus. And my recommendation for that is that you read it without reading a blurb, without reading a synopsis. Just go into it completely blind, because it's so good to like experience the story unfolding as you go and being like genuinely surprised. That's one of those books that I would give a year of my life to read that again for the first time, to like experience it straight out without knowing what's going to happen. Susan, have you found the name of your book?
Yes, I did. I did find the name of my book. Thank
Good.
you. It's the first in a series. I'm on a new fantasy kick, so I'm trying to stray away from horror and murder.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't started it yet, but it was recommended. It's called Resistance by J.L. Knight.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for reasons, I'm trying to find more fantasy worlds to dive into, because...
You've got to read the Sarah J. Maas books then.
Yeah, I would also recommend Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I just read it, and it's really, really good. And it's a fantasy book, and it's just it's a one-off. It's not in a series. So that's the kind of thing that I'm digging right now because I can't commit to a series.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did one. Suze did one. Do you want to do one then, Brittany?
Sure.
Okay.
So I am still reading Invisible, but I am going to recommend this week, and this is actually a book that I have recommended to Hannah and Brittany, at least in the past. It's called A Sucky Love Story, and it's by a YouTuber named Brittany Taylor, Brittani, Brittany Taylor, and it is a true story about her life with domestic abuse, and it is a really, really good read. It's her first book. So, it's, it's her first book, so she's, like, getting into the swing of writing, but it's really, really good, and if you have Audible, she has an audiobook for it that she reads.
I love that.
So, that's my recommendation for this
Excellent.
week.
Have you read any more about your Italian witchcraft?
No, not yet, because
Okay.
I've got a few
That's
other
okay.
things.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I just like to be updated, and I want the people to be updated as well.
Yeah.
Brittany, can you read?
Can read, but I don't.
Oh, that's okay.
All right.
Have you ever read a book?
I guess I've read a book. I stopped reading after like 20 though. So like all my books that I like are like young adult books.
I thought you meant after 20 books.
I stopped reading after 20 books.
That's enough for a lifetime.
Half of what I recommend is YA, so
That's
don't feel
fine.
bad about it.
Let me look it up really quick.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It was my favorite book as a kid.
While Brittany is doing that,
You read fashion books.
I forgot about this, and I don't know how, but I'm going to mention it now. I want everyone to know that we are wearing matching sweatshirts. Like, everyone at this table is wearing a sweatshirt that is exactly the same, just a different color. So put that in your brain. Oh, another thing we can do while Brittany's looking this up. Elizabeth,
Yeah.
where can the people find us?
You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Coffee, TikTok, and I think that's it.
I do too.
We are Briefcase Crimes everywhere, and we also have a link tree, which is in our bio, so you can easily access any of our social media through that handy link tree.
And if you are on a podcasting app, I have started putting the link tree in every single description. So all you have to do is click on that link and it will open up basically a menu to all of the different places, like a directory, to all of the different places where you can find us. So if you want to look at the brief, that'll be in there. That'll be at our website. We're still kind of waiting to buy a domain, but one day we'll be able to tell you
Yeah.
our domain and you can go straight there. But
Yeah.
it's on a link tree right now.
Right. And it's super nice. It looks great. We just, right now we're still doing this as a hobby. It doesn't really make any money for us yet. So maybe one day it will. And at that point, we'll be able to buy a domain and maintain that.
And on that vein, if you want to support us monetarily, you can go to ko-fi.com/briefcasecrimes and you can give us a little bit of money if that is something you feel inclined to do. If you cannot or do not want to support us financially, we totally understand. That is absolutely fine with us, no pressure at all. But the things that do help us that are non-monetary are liking, subscribing, rating, sharing with your friends, leaving a comment, leaving a thumbs up. Those kinds of any positive interaction helps us to please the algorithm gods, and it brightens our day. Malibu Barbie,
Yes.
what is your favorite book from when you were a teen?
Okay, it is a book called Pretty Things by an author called Sarah Manning.
What's the cover of that look like?
It's feet.
Feet.
Have I read this?
Don't give that away for free.
Sarah Manning.
It looks like this.
I read this.
I don't think I have.
Praise love like home juicy tubes. What? I did not read this book.
Well, anyway,
But it sounds like a Britney.
It's a very me book. It's about 4 teenagers who kind of like have like an interwoven love story with each other. Some of the characters are really good. Some of the characters are really annoying. But
It's like us.
it's just
Yeah.
like us. But I really recommend it for anyone who likes young adult books. I'm not into like the books like they are. I prefer to sit down and watch a series or a show, but
You could also recommend a show if you want. It's just, what are you reading? What are you recommending? You could recommend anything.
Yeah, you've been watching Carnival Row.
oh yeah, there's a show on
Amazon
Prime. Sponsor them.
Please do.
It's called Carnival Row, and it's like diving into a different look on like fairy world.
Ooh.
And steampunk.
Yeah, and steampunk. It's like it combines the two, and it's really dark and really, really good. And Orlando Bloom's
I was
in
going
it.
to say, is that an Orlando Bloom and
It
a Cara
is.
Delevingne?
Uh-huh.
And he is, I mean, they're both.
But
Chef's kiss.
chef's kiss. Do you want to wrap this sucker up?
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you all so much for listening today.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
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 Ciao, ciao. Okay. Lord, give me strength.